this week we saw two separate set of hearings. One for the head of the EPA, Andrew Mueller, had his Senate confirmation hearings. This is a guy who is a more or less a climate change denier. He is an industry lobbyist, fossil fuel industry, I believe. And so not terribly surprising. We will get into that more. Obviously, there were protesters at Wheeler's hearing. But let's turn our attention to, I think, a slightly more urgent concern, and that would be the Attorney General, or I should say the Attorney General nominee. This is William Barr. This is round two for him. 30 years ago was in charge of George Herbert Walker Bush's Department of Justice, and dutifully helped the senior Bush pardon figures from the Iran-Contra affair so as ultimately to protect the senior Bush. And so that's always nice work. So this guy is highly experienced. And he had written a 19-page memo, as you know, and gave it to the Trump administration as an explanation, or I should say as, creating justifications as to why the president did not commit any crimes that he's being investigated with, which is, if nothing, it shows a lot of chutzpah to write 19 pages upon, an issue that you couldn't possibly know much about because it's a secret investigation, or at least what they're finding is kept secret, is pretty impressive without knowing any of this stuff. But this is Bill Barr, and by impressive, I'm being sarcastic. It's ridiculous. What's your sense of Bill Barr? Because it seems to me this could go sideways for the president, or it could go sideways for the country.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. When he was first named, I wrote a piece a couple of months ago for Salon, in which I sort of, I posited there were two possibilities with Barr. He could end up being, and the optimistic case, in which he's good for the country and bad for Trump, is that he would be, someone sort of a hardcore right-winger, typical conservative, but a little bit of the old school. He's been out of it during these years of real radicalization. So perhaps he comes in with a sense of sort of old-fashioned conservative commitment to the rule of law and the Constitution. And while he may, have thought that, Trump isn't that bad, when he sees the evidence, then he realizes just how bad it is. And I drew the parallel between that and Leon Jaworski, the Watergate prosecutor who was brought in after Nixon fired Archibald Cox. And that's exactly what happened. He was, a Nixon supporter, and had also been asked to be part of the team, just as Barr had been asked to be part of Trump's team, had turned it down. And then finally they called him up and said, hey, Jaworski said, hey, we really need you now. You need to come. And so he did. And then when he saw the evidence, he went, oh, okay, you guys do your job. Excuse me. So that was one possibility. The other possibility is that William Barr's brain has been rotted by Fox News, as have many conservatives of his age, and that he has bought into all this crazy nonsense, and that he is now an official and true Trump believer, as have many. Just look at the array on Fox News. And there's evidence in both directions, and the hearings this week sort of showed that.
Right.
He has been revealed to have, first of all, just the fact that he wrote this memo. And he sent it around to every sort of Trump-supporting lawyer he could find. He didn't send it to his good friend Bob Mueller, apparently, but he did send it to all these other people. He wasn't asked to do it. He just sort of did it based upon a bunch of nonsensical information, things that were wrong, that have been revealed to be wrong, and other close observers like Marcy Wheeler are just rolling their eyes going, you got to be kidding. This guy was basing all this, on bad information, and he made plenty of comments to the press, willingly just kind kind of out there just saying things like, I think the Clinton uranium story and the Clinton Foundation, there's far more reason to investigate that than to investigate this collusion, which he put in scare quotes.
This is QAnon stuff. This is QAnon stuff, right? I mean,
exactly. This is crazy right-wing conspiracy theory, rotted fox brain. That is what I'm referring to it as. These are people who were formerly, pretty normal, who've been sitting in their, lazy boy loungers watching Fox all day and having their brains rotted. And so there is this danger that that's who this guy is. Now, the hearings showed him to be a pretty smart guy. He's not somebody, he's not just, he's not Louis Gohmert or something. I mean, he's a, an experienced Washington hand. But there was a lot in what he said that was very kind of made me nervous and kind of made me tip over to the rotted brain side of the equation on this, in which, yes, he said, Bob Mueller's a friend of mine. I have great faith in his integrity. But he is very clearly laying out a predicate for either firing Mueller for cause. I don't think he'll do that. But he has another out, which became clear. As uninformed as he is about everything else, he was very informed about the special counsel statute, which says that the special counsel has to deliver, if he decides to write a report, deliver it in confidence to the Attorney General, who will then decide if it should be disseminated to the public, or he could write his own report summarizing in some way what he wants it to say. There would be nothing Robert Mueller could do about that, aside from going outside the rules, which, I don't know, maybe he would, but it's unlikely, and this may not even be shared with the Congress. And I saw Adam Schiff come on TV after he saw this, and he was boiling because he's going, this is completely outrageous. He understood exactly what Barr was about there, which is to say that Barr is going to, and a lot of other people are going, well, Barr, he's just a rules guy. He's just going to follow the regulations, and Schiff saw through it right away. No, he's going to use the regulations for the purpose of obscuring whatever it is that Robert Mueller comes up with that is dangerous to Donald Trump. Again, maybe he'll be Leon Jaworski and go, oh, my God, this is way worse. Okay, go ahead, Bob, let her rip. Right. But there's every possibility that he is suffering from serious fox brain rot and that he is going to do the opposite.
At the very least, what he's doing is he's keeping that door open. I mean, that's exactly what my sense was, too, is that he was basically telegraphing what the Republican Trump strategy is going to be to deal with the Mueller report, which is we're going to let him finish. We're going to provide a veneer that this is actually a process that is going to be dealt with integrity, and we will corrupt that process in its public facing part of it. Which is, we will reinterpret the report. We will bury the report. We will say there are problems with the report. The report is complicated. We actually have written a counter report to the other report. These are two different sets of opinions. I mean, this is going to be the strategy. We've seen it before. And, it's very hard for the Senate. Well, maybe not that hard, but I imagine it will be unlikely for a Republican Senate to in any way sort of assess what is the real report and act upon it. But Bill Barr, I think, is the person who's basically going to, who's been hired to bring a veneer of old school republicanism, but basically hide the ball, as it were. All right, well, let's take a break. When we come back, there was a lot to discuss in terms of Russia this week, at least in terms of reporting on Donald Trump's activities relative to Vladimir Putin, sort of some shocking stuff. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio, talking to the great Digby.